All right, there we are. And we are on page 388 of Sri Sharda Devi and her divine play. Sri Sharda Devi, an incarnation of the divine from this, I guess, the late 1800s, early 1900s, out of Calcutta. And that's where we are this evening. The name of the chapter is At Belur and with the Disciples. So Belur is a small suburb of Calcutta, and the Belur Mat means the Belur Monastery. I'm not sure why we got in the habit of calling them mats instead of monastery. But anyway, mat and monastery is the same. The order, as you know, has mats and missions. Missions are service-oriented centers that run a school or a hospital or an orphanage or something. And then the mats are cloistered. They're quiet places for spiritual practice. So the order tries to provide both paths. People who are doing karma yoga and reaching their divine that way, and those who are doing raja or jnana or bhakti yogi. We also, all right. So our writer here says, when Holy Mother was in Calcutta, Premananda always asked her permission before going anywhere to lecture. In 1914, Premananda was invited to speak during the Ramakrishna festival at Malda in North Bengal. He came with the devotees to Udbodhan to receive the mother's permission, but she refused it because Premananda had been sick only a fortnight before. When the devotees again importuned Holy Mother about the trip, she asked Premananda if he wanted to go. He replied with great emotion, "What do I know, Mother? I shall carry out your order. If you ask me to jump into fire, I will jump. If you ask me to plunge into water, I will plunge. If you ask me to enter into hell, I will enter. What do I know? Your word is final." At last, Holy Mother gave her permission, but she asked him to return soon. To the devotees, she said, "You see, they are all great souls. Their bodies are channels for doing good in the world. Look after their physical comfort and their well-being." A couple things come to light here. I found this out after becoming a monk. When I became a monk, I had no idea what I was doing. Now I know that I was right in not knowing what I was doing. I think I would have been too afraid to do it if I'd understood. But this idea of asking permission, in the order, it's customary. All the junior monks would ask permission pretty much before you do anything. And it's not really that you need permission, but it's a matter of battling the ego. The ego never likes to ask permission. The ego always wants to be autonomous. And so not making your own decisions is a big part of monasticism. And actually, also the monk realizing that, Premananda answers, "What do I know?" from the perspective that there's no one here, Mother. I'm at your service. There is no person here in me. You alone are here, and I'm here to do your bidding. As a sannyasin, I've given up any self-determination, any purpose of life of my own. That I serve the divine and the divine only, and keep that as my only concern, my only hope. So very much, again, like Peace Pilgrim, being the butler of the divine, where you stand ready to serve, but you don't decide where to serve. You wait for the movement or the instruction from the divine or from someone else that makes it obvious what needs to be done. And we run into it a lot these days, actually, in trying to be available for whatever's going to happen here in Colorado. To also try and not make those decisions on my own, and not to let egoism get in there and start looking at it like success or failure, or that there's things to list that have been accomplished that somehow I should get credit for or that I've done. Because egoism is our biggest enemy. It's the devil in Christianity. It's the veil of Maya in Vedanta. It is the thing, the blockage that prevents us from seeing God in each other and in everything around us. It's that element that keeps us separate from God, that keeps us alone, that keeps us small. And that's kind of the ego is sort of a safety net for the ignorant self. It surrounds itself in assumptions in order to be comfortable in a world that it cannot understand, in a world that's so much bigger and vaster than what the ego is. And so the ego provides comfort. It provides you with a sense. No, nobody's waiting to get in. Is she in the right class? But yeah, so this guarding our inner world, guarding our self from egoism is a very important part of our practice. Because any time that we get annoyed by someone, that's because of ego. Anytime we get irritable, anytime we get angry, anytime we get jealous, anytime we're tempted to use any of the definitions of self that are not legal, right? You're able to say that I'm loving, that I'm intelligent, and that I exist. You can't say anything else about yourself. Those are the only three logical or true things that can be said. Anything else is going to bleed in through the ego. The ego wants you to think that you have these other characteristics, but we don't. We are Satchitananda, and that is it. That's what we respond to. So we see Premananda being very careful here, not making up his own mind, not making his own decision about whether he wants to go or not, but making sure that he keeps himself in a state of awareness around his surrender and around his dependence on God. Swami Abhetananda said, "She who was Sita and Radha has incarnated in this age in the form of Sri Sharda Devi. The mother is Saraswati, the goddess of wisdom. She bestows knowledge and liberation. The master and mother are identical as Shiva and Shakti." Right, and we talked a little bit about that last week, and I kind of liked the idea. It was a new idea at the time that I shared it last week. Is this notion of how is it that Shiva and Shakti are two but one? I always like to get clarity on that. And basically, it has to do with your level of awareness or your level of consciousness when you look at them, right? If you're ego bound, that means that your identity is based in the past, right? Because all egoism is based on attributes from experience and doership. And so when we have an ego, when we have a sense of separation from God, when we have a sense of personhood, we're in that state of egoism, which means that we are not in the present. We do not have our awareness in the present. We have our awareness on the very last thought that we had, or on the last frame of reality, as it were. And we're sitting on that edge looking at the present moment from our samskaras, from our experiences, from our idea of ourself, from our ego. And so in egoism, when you look at the moment, it's an object in front of you. So it's separate from you, right? And you're going to be aware of the change, right? Because it's just like that last frame of the movie. The last frame of the movie sees the current frame of the movie. They're not the same. So the mind creates the story, the narrative to link those two. And that's why we see movement in the movie. And so in our reality, you can say it's very much the same, because the nature of the divine absolute is not changing, not moving, no moving. That which is unchanging alone is real. But we can't see the unchanging when we are standing on the last frame, the previous frame of the movie, and looking at the present. We're always going to see movement. We're always going to see change in that perspective. But when we come to that awareness, or that enlightenment, if you want to call it that, although I think you can have some experience of this without nirvikalpa samadhi, but when you live spontaneously, which means you've moved out of egoism right smack into the present moment, there can be no movement in the present moment because it's just too small for anything to move on, as it were. And so you are in the state of the absolute unchanging when you're in the present moment. You will see that Shiva and Shakti are one in that perspective when you are perfectly over the head of the moment. You won't see the change. You won't see movement. You won't experience that uh, uh, that difference as strongly. I think that you can do that and not be a nirvikalpa. You can still have some awareness, like Thakur, I think, where he was in the company of the Divine Mother and was seeing her and conversing with her.
Maharaj, didn't
Yes.
Thakur call it Brahman and Shakti?
Could you call it Brahman and Shakti? Yeah, you could. Yeah. Brahman and Shakti, yeah. Those are just different words from the different paths, the different way, the different philosophies, the different schools of philosophy talk about it. But yeah, Brahman would be the same in that sense. So we see here some of the qualities of the Divine Mother. First of all, that just like there's one incarnation who has come again and again, so that which was Jesus is the same as that which was Buddha, is the same being as that which was Rama, and the same was that which was Krishna, and the same that we see as Ramakrishna. And in the divine, it's the same for the divine feminine, for the Divine Mother, it's the same. She who was Sita, she who was Radha, she who was Mary, she who is Saraswati. So she is all the gods and goddesses, and she is that one, a divine infinite, a divine feminine that keeps coming back every time God incarnates for us. So the disciples of the Master consulted with Holy Mother, even in personal matters, when they could not come to decisions themselves. Swami Abhedananda left for America in 1897, where he lived on a strict vegetarian diet. From time to time, he suffered illnesses. His doctor suggested that he take non-vegetarian food for health reasons. About this, he wrote a letter to Holy Mother seeking her advice, and she replied, "Dear son, I am delighted to receive your letter yesterday with the news that your activities are going on well. You are glorifying the face of the Master. I always pray to him, and I will bless you so that you may be crowned with success. There is no doubt that the Master will always help you in your noble activities. Do not be so strict about food. In that country, you should take fish and meat instead of purely vegetarian food. It will not do any harm to you. I am giving you permission to eat non-vegetarian food without any hesitation. Always take care of your health. Take rest in solitude from time to time, and write to me occasionally about your health. My blessings to you, your mother." I love how she starts and ends that, dear son, and sincerely your mother, because that's really, really, mother is the mother, indeed. That's the real relationship. But you see her breadth of mind also, you're not in India right now, you're in that country, they eat lots of meat in that country, you're there, you should eat and do that for your health. It's not such a big deal, it's not going to harm you. I give you permission. You see that broadness of her mind. That was Vivekananda's concern, was that religion had gone to the kitchen, that we had gotten too focused on the easy rules that really don't make that much difference and had begun to neglect the bigger ones that do make a difference, our self-control, our egoism, our humility, those things that are actually the important things. And those other things which are really there more or less just to keep us disciplined, to keep us healthy, our diet, our practices of using this hand or that hand, or not wearing shoes here or there. All of those were initially put in place to just be little ways of keeping the mind on God, keeping the self aware that you're in the presence of God. And so, we shouldn't get calcified in any of these ways of thinking. We should always remain flexible. The mind should always be movable and malleable. We shouldn't get hard edged about things that are not really that important. The most important things are truth, honesty, sincerity, earnestness, and love. Anything in those categories, primary, can't be compromised, must be obeyed. But those other rules that float around, those are aids for helping us on the path. They're not necessarily the path itself. And so we keep our mind flexible, keep our minds open, always judge things by the principle of love, right? Is this love? Swami Turiyananda said, "The mother is the great divine power. She exists in this world to do good to humanity. We try our utmost to raise our minds to the throat center, while she uses Radhu to force her mind down to that place. Try to understand this mystery. Victory to the mother, the primordial power." Swami Subodhananda said, "The master and the mother are one, as the obverse and reverse of the same coin. As fire and its power to burn are identical, so are they." See, that's Subodhananda got that directly from the master's teaching. There, you've got Brahman, which is the fire, and then you've got the power to burn, which is Shakti. Right? They can't be separated, although they can be talked about as separate. But that you can't have the fire without its power to burn, or its power to burn without the fire. And so they both are there, but they can take on the idea of two. And a lot of that has to do with our senses. We've talked about that in the past, that we're actually looking at and living in a singularity, a one without a second. There is not a multiplicity. It's like a dream. In a dream, there's no one in the dream but the dreamer, even though there could be 10 million people, right? They're all just made of mind stuff. And so we also are just made of that mind stuff now as well. And so there aren't multiplicities of us. There is just one. There's one seer, and that same seer is in each one of us, right? You can think of it as the dreamer. The dreamer enters into all of the dreamed inhabitants of the dream and moves them all according to the dreamer's will, right? But as individuals in the dream, we actually do have our own ego self. We do have our sense of existence, separate and apart from the dreamer. I've shared that lucid dream that I had about Monterey Bay many times. But the reason I talk about that dream so much is because I saw then for the first time that egoism exists within our own dreams, that the other characters in our dreams believe that they exist separate and apart from me. When I'm sleeping and dreaming, that girl was in that dream in that inner tube on the bay. And she got offended when I got too close to her because I knew that I was dreaming and I was going over to kind of study her as a dream object, like, wow, this is crazy. And then she gets mad at me for invading her space. And, I woke up laughing because I'm like, I'm the dreamer. You're using my mind. You're using all of my resources to exist. And you're offended because I'm paddled too close to you. What is up with that? You have nothing. You are nothing but me, right? And yet she had an ego. She had a sense of self, a sense of separateness from me, who was directly identified with the dreamer, And so this happens. This is the reality of us here. So fire and its power to burn. The dream and the fire is the dreamer, the person who's asleep, motionless. And yet in his motionless state, he may in fact, or she may be in fact absolutely motionless. But in the dream, all kinds of things are going on in that dream. But the dreamer's not affected. If there's water in the dreamer's not going to get wet. If there's fire in the dreamer's not going to get burned. And so this is the reality. This is the nature of the reality that we're in, even now. And so here, Thakur Subodhananda is telling us how the mother and the master are one. They are not two. And so this divine feminine and the divine masculine, there's no difference to them. Those are sub characteristics. They're not native characteristics as such. That the divine self, the self, is without any distinction. like that, any particular attribute like that. The mother is Mahamaya, the primordial power. When God incarnates, she also comes with him. Otherwise, the play of an avatar remains incomplete. She came with Ramachandra as Sita, and with Krishna as Radha, with Buddha as Yashodhara, and with Chaitanya as Vishnupriya, and now with Ramakrishna as Sharda. Know for certain that when Holy Mother has blessed you, from that very moment your fate has changed. Many people, even now, deeply regret that they did not have the darshan of the Mother. Only he can understand Sri Ramakrishna or Holy Mother to whom they reveal themselves. The sun can be seen only with sunlight. It is by their grace and their compassion that people can know them and have their darshan. If you can make the Mother your own, through her grace, you will attain everything. Right? So it's just through this holding on to the Divine Mother, which is beautiful because she's equally holding on to you. You know, she's as dedicated to you as you are to your children, as she is to her children. You know, that this is the nature of Mother. And so mother's promises are very much within our reach. You know, she hands them to us. We don't have to go clamoring for them. She hands them to us. And how do we get that grace of the Mother? We simply call her Mother. Just call from your heart to Mother as Mother. And she says that she cannot resist you if you call out as her child. And so this is how we access the grace of the divine, is like that. And through her grace, you attain everything. So this is how we are able to realize God, even though we are not the doer. And just your friendly reminder that nobody here will realize God, right? Why? Because that's what realization is, that you don't exist. So you're not the one that's going to realize God. God realizes God over and over and over again, right? He's the waves of divine bliss that Ramakrishna saw in his vision in the shrine. You know, each one of our realizations is one of those waves of divine bliss that's rushing toward the divine on the sea, that infinite sea of consciousness. So we are one of those waves, and its realization is the surrendering of separateness completely. It's the surrender of egoism completely, so that we become one with the ocean at that point, or understand our oneness with the ocean. So that's why I say no, people don't realize God. God realizes God. People are what gets sloughed off when you realize God. Your old ego self gets sloughed off. You know, it becomes an imagined thing, like, oh my gosh, can you imagine? I thought that way, I believed that way, I acted that way. Swami Vijnanananda said, I repeat the Mother's name as Ma Anandamayi. There is a special effect of chanting the Mother's name. She protects spiritual aspirants from lust. I experienced this. One can attain devotion. One can attain faith, sincerity, intelligence, wealth, and opulence by the power of her name. I derive more strength from the Mother's name than from the Master's. You must look upon the Master and the Mother with an eye of non-differentiation. Remember, one cannot realize the Master without the grace of the Mother, and vice versa. The Master is, as it were, Lord Narayana, and the Mother, Goddess Lakshmi. One should ask for strength from the Mother. Without strength, nothing can be achieved. Swami Akhandananda said, Holy Mother is the Goddess Annapurna, the Mother of the universe, and Lakshmi of Vaikuntha. This time, God himself incarnated as Sri Ramakrishna and the Goddess as Holy Mother. God and Goddess are both necessary to perform the Avatar Leela, or the divine play on earth. As many times God has incarnated as an avatar from Ramachandra to Chaitanya, so many times his consort has come. So our mother became Sita, Radha, Yashodhara, and Vishnupriya. The Master disclosed the true nature of the Mother to some of us. He said to Swami Trigunatitananda, Radha's infinite power of Maya is beyond description. Millions of Krishnas and Ramas evolve, abide, and dissolve in it. So it's the mother that makes the incarnation possible, the power of God that makes the manifestation possible in that. But in their essence, they are one, they're the same. And we should see them as the same. We shouldn't see them as separate and different beyond the level of relationship with them. When a devotee said that he had met Holy Mother, Swami Akhandananda remarked, when you have seen the Mother, the same result of having the darshan of Sri Ramakrishna will accrue to you. To have had the darshan of the Mother or the Master is the same thing. The disciples considered an order from Holy Mother to be their guru's order. In 1897, Swami Akhandananda was the first monk to start famine relief in Murshidabad, and Swamiji encouraged him to work even unto death. Forgetting food and rest, he served human beings as God, which is one of the principles of the Ramakrishna mission. Eventually, his health broke down and he suffered from malarial fever and had a lack of proper food and rest. The brother disciples asked him to take care of himself, but he disregarded their advice. Finally, the mother called for him to come to her Calcutta residence. He immediately came from Sargachi and bowed down to her. Holy Mother told him, now you should stay in Balaram's house, and an Ayurvedic doctor will treat you. Please follow his instructions implicitly, and don't go away from that place without my permission. The Swami obeyed the mother like a little boy. When he was under the Ayurvedic treatment, Premananda visited him and asked him to come to Bellarmat for a day. Akhandananda replied, brother, the mother asked me to stay here and to have the treatment. I can't go any place without her permission. Otherwise, she will scold me. Premananda then went to Udbodhan, got the mother's permission, and brought him to Bellarmat. You see, they're very serious about that tradition, and don't make exceptions. You know, this is the bane of spiritual life, is making exceptions for ourselves. You know, making room for our vices, not doing away with things completely, but just kind of in a general sort of pushing aside. We still keep the imprints in the carpet, you know, of where the chair was. we don't push things away completely, and that's why we can't quiet our minds. That's why our minds are noisy, and why it's so difficult for us to do our practice. You know, if we would say no to our vices, to our shortcomings, if we would say no with a no that's meant, you know, all the way down, like no, not a second thought about it, not even a consideration of a second thought about it. If we can learn and train ourselves to be that way, then the mind will quiet when you say quiet, right? But if you don't mean it with yourself, you know, if you give yourself wiggle room when you say no to things, or you compromise, you know, you're like, well, I'll just sit for 15 minutes today instead of an hour, you know, that'll be all right. And then pretty soon you find out that's all you're doing every day, right? That's the nature of it. Mother told us that she also had that experience. One morning she slept in a little bit because she just wasn't feeling well. And she said it took her 3 days before she was able to get back into the habit of getting up when she got up. She got up like at 3 o'clock in the morning or something like that. But you know, we also should be this careful with ourselves. You know, we should not compromise in ourselves. And I'm speaking directly to my own self on that. I just really, you know, especially, well, I was going to say, especially when we're in my circumstance, you know, where I'm away from a monastery and don't have a lot of people around. You know, this stuff becomes primary. You know, I'll lay there in the morning in my bed, my time will come, the alarm will go off, and my mind will be like, oh, there's no reason to get up. You don't have anything to do this morning. You can lay here, you can sleep a little bit more, just another half hour, you know. And it's just like that. And if you indulge in that, it never ends. You know, it just never ends, because what happens is you compromise, you feel that compromise inside. You don't feel good about that compromise. And that affects your mood. That affects your strength. That affects your ability to accept grace, is what it does. It blocks your acceptance of grace because your mind, your guilt, your shame that the mind causes when you compromise like that, can't hold out the hand for grace. You feel unworthy, you feel small, you feel all of those things. And of course, oddly enough, the way to solve that is also through grace. It's forcing yourself into a state of grace, even though you feel terrible about it. When you find that it's actually present, and when you find that Mother is willing to lift your spirit, even in the midst of your worst days, then grace is real. When you take that chance, you go when you don't deserve it. That's when you ask for it. And it's through surrender that you can ask for it, even in your worst state, right? So you go to the Mother and you just admit, yes, I'm in a terrible place. It's very difficult. I've compromised, but I have nothing without you. I have nothing if you don't come to help me, right? And so that's why Premananda, just that last chapter, last paragraph, Mother's a great help in our weaknesses, and like he mentioned, lust in particular. That you go and you surrender to the Mother, and you admit the troubles, and you lay down. You don't make excuses. You don't explain it away, because there is no explanation. There is no excuse that's worthy. You simply lay it out there in front of you, and then you push it aside, and you sit with Mother, and you don't let the mind return to it a single time. Then you tell the mind, no, Mother, no mind, we have offered that to Mother. Mother has taken that away. It's not yours to think of anymore, right? And so this is how we go forward in spiritual life. This is how grace works. This is how we become changed. Nowadays, some people do not look after their elderly parents who brought them into this world and raised them. They do not realize how much suffering and trouble a mother undertakes to bring up a child. In one of the hymns on the Divine Mother, Shankara says, "O Mother, a bad son may sometimes be born, but never has there been a bad mother. An ocean has its bottom and its limits, but a mother's affection is bottomless and limitless. The difference between an ordinary mother and Holy Mother is this. An ordinary mother thinks that her children came from her body, so they belong only to her. Holy Mother knew that all human beings originated from her, and that all of them are her children. She demonstrated pure and unselfish love to humanity. Ramakrishna left a group of wonderful children who looked after Holy Mother more than they did their own biological mothers. The relationship between the Master's disciples and the Holy Mother was so loving and so sweet that it should be the paradigm of mother-child relationships all over the world. Swami Nirlepananda described how the Master's disciples respected Holy Mother. We noticed that when the Master's disciples came to bow down to the Mother, she became established in her real self. And when these great ones left, it would take some time before she came down from that higher plane to the normal state. Swamiji saw that the Mother was Adya Shakti, the primordial power. He recognized that a jiva attains the knowledge of Brahman by her grace only. After initiating Sudhir, later Swami Shuddhananda, Swamiji asked Holy Mother, "Mother, please bestow your best blessings on this boy." Swami Brahmananda said to Shuddhananda, "Sudhir, I can give you the experience of samadhi, but the Mother can do it better and can do it more easily." In 1906, Swami Shardananda said to a young man, "Today you have received the Mother as a guru. If you practice spiritual discipline according to her instruction, you will realize that the Mother is the Divine Mother herself. But you will have to work hard. Some say I have seen the mother and received the mantra from her, so I don't need to practice any more sadhana. In one sense, they are right. But truly, those who say that are deceitful. The mother opens the door for liberation. Now you will have to go and reach that door. In 1913, Swami Vijnanananda came to Odbada House to see Holy Mother. He said, I was seated in Sharat Maharaj's room downstairs. I got a call from upstairs to bow down to the mother. While I was walking up each step, I could feel the lotus of each center of Kundalini opening up. My whole body and mind were flooded with bliss. That's crazy. Can you imagine this? Well, I mean, these things we have to put on our eyes, to put on the real eyes so we can see what's really happening. I mean, he's climbing the stairs literally to see God as mother, mother who's in that state now, because he just explained that when the disciples were coming to her, that she went to her normal state. She knew that she was the divine mother, the primordial Shakti, and she sat there and could read that, and that at each step as he approached her, he could feel the bliss and the power within riding up through the Kundalini, through the chakras within himself, each one just releasing more and more bliss. My whole body and mind were flooded with bliss. In 1918 at Balaram Mandir, Swami Turiyananda said to Dr. Durgapada Ghosh, a disciple of the mother, Doctor, what are you seeing? What do you think about the mother? Is it enough to receive mantra in the ear if there is no practice of sadhana? It is sure and certain that you will get liberation at the end, and it is registered. But if you sincerely practice sadhana by repeating the mantra, you will be blessed by tasting the bliss of the Jivan Mukti, liberation in life. Then only will you realize who the mother is and leave this world happily. Swami Adbhutananda said, Mother knows my past and my future. She knows everything. What is the point in writing to her just for the sake of appearance? What is the necessity of writing to one who knows everything about my past, my present, and my future? Will the mother become a stranger to me just because I do not go to see her? You ask how I look upon the mother. She is Mother Lakshmi, yet she is sometimes Sita. This wonderful notion here, you kind of see this attitude toward prayer here as well. That when you come to know the nature of your divine ideal, you come to know the nature of God in your practice, then the need of the formalities begins to lessen. Your caution around the particulars begins to lessen a bit more. Love becomes more and more of the guiding rule for you. And the fear of separation, the fear of power and whatnot in the mother slowly disappears over time as you begin to recognize her more and more as the mother. And that this knowledge that she knows your whole past, your whole present, your whole future, and that there is nothing in there that makes her exclude you or makes her discount you or makes her push you from her. These are the ways that we come to have faith in these things that we cannot know from this world. Through faith, we come to trust that there is a love that's unconditioned. And that begins to inspire us, that begins to change our heart, that begins to lift our eyes. It removes those fetters of shame, the fetters of regret and resentment, right? And so it is the fact that nothing needs to be concealed from mother, but it's also the fact that the love is so great, the idea of concealing is almost disappears. You have such a full confidence in her presence, not in your ability and not in your performance, but in her love for you, in her grace toward you. And that becomes what drives your practice, what inspires your time with the mother. And that knowing of her nature is what allows you to sit in silence and have a full prayer, because you open all the gates. You just let mother peer in to you completely. And you just sit there in full awareness of her presence, of that presence. That's how we're changed. That's how we're made holy. That's how we're brought to our liberation. It's just simply being in that presence and continually stretching our openness to understand how great that love, how great that grace is in the Divine Mother. In 1907, Holy Mother came to Calcutta from Jairambati to attend Durga Puja at Girish's house, and she stayed at Balaram's house for a month. Latu, with Swami Adbhutananda, lived in a room to the right of the main entrance. While entering the house, the mother saw her dear Latu. She inquired, "Hello, my son Latu, how are you?" Latu replied in his unpolished, rustic language, "Go away, mother, you're a dignified lady. Why have you come to the outer apartment to speak to me? Please go upstairs right away. I will not speak to you here. You could have sent for me and I would have come up to see you. Mother, I'm your servant, you know." Laughing, Holy Mother went upstairs to her room. As long as Holy Mother stayed at Balaram's house, she sent prasad to Latu every day. Ah, wow. It must have been so satisfying for him. You know, he sends her upstairs, embarrassed that she came down to visit him because he's nothing, right? How could you do that? Go back upstairs. If you want me, call me. I'll come to you. You don't come to me. So he had that deep regard, a deep respect for the mother. And then she goes and sends him a special little package every single day of prasad. You know, that must have been so, so, so meaningful to him. Other devotees would go to see Holy Mother, but Latu stayed in his room. Some devotees misunderstood him because they did not go to pay his respects to the mother. One day he told them, "Look, is it so easy to understand the mother? Just imagine, she accepted the master's worship. Only the master knew the real nature of the mother, and Swamiji understood it a little. She is Mother Lakshmi herself. It needs a lot of austerity to understand her grace." Right? So it's that austerity that breaks down our egoism and gives us eyes to see what it is we're dealing with. You know, is it so easy just to go and take the darshan of mother? You know, it's easy for you to do because you see her as just a woman, a guru, a teacher, you know, the wife of your guru. It says, but she is the divine itself. She's Mother Lakshmi. You know, how can you walk into her presence with that knowledge without falling on your face, you know, without completely melting before her? The day arrived when Holy Mother was leaving for Jairambati. All the devotees went to bow down to the mother upstairs, but Latu did not go. He was pacing in his room and muttering to himself, "Who is a mother or father to a monk? He is free from all Maya." When the mother was coming down the steps, she overheard that what Latu was saying. When she reached his door, she said, "Dear Latu, you will not have to accept me, my son." Immediately, Latu sprang from his room and fell at the mother's feet and began to sob. Seeing her child, Latu cry, tears came from the mother's eyes. Latu took the corner of his chadar and began to wipe the mother's tears. He said to her with a choked voice, "Mother, you're going to your father's house. You should not cry. Sharat will bring you back soon. Don't cry, mother, don't. Is it proper for one to cry when one departs?" This touching departure reminds us of Latu's childlike simplicity and the deep love for the mother. He was the first disciple whom the master introduced to the mother in Dakshineshwar, and he remained devoted to her throughout his life. Wow, what a special man. What a sweetness. You know, he saw her as his mother, even the mother he had to renounce as a monk, you know. And what a thing for him to feel like he had to renounce the Holy Mother, the Divine Mother. My goodness, what a faith he had. Oof, wow, holy company in spades. That's amazing. It's hard to hear that, it's hard to see the quality of these people, the purity of their hearts, the depth of their faith. You feel like that primordial bull in the china shop, having no idea what you're around, having no idea what you get to see and come in contact with, and you just kind of lumber around, just some street urchin. All right. What are we? So, chapter 24, Mother of the Ramakrishna Order. As the power to burn dwells in fire, so Sharda dwells in Ramakrishna as his Shakti, the cosmic power. I bow down to that mother, who is the embodiment of knowledge. One day in 1884, Ramakrishna was seated in his room at Dakshineshwar, talking about the three salient disciples of the Vaishnava religion. Chaitanya taught his disciple Sanatan. Listen, O Sanatan, there is no other dharma than practicing compassion for all living beings, having love for God's name, and serving the devotees. Reflecting upon these three teachings, the master repeated the word compassion and then went into samadhi. After a while, he returned to normal consciousness and said to the devotees, "How foolish to speak of compassion. Man is an insignificant worm crawling on the earth, and he is to show compassion to others? This is absurd. It must not be compassion, but service to all. Recognize all people as God's manifestations and serve them." Only Narendra, later Swami Vivekananda, understood the implication of these words and resolved to implement this practical Vedanta, serving human beings as God. Yeah, that compassion, that's assuming you have something to give. Compassion assumes there's something in you that can help or that can be given to somebody or can help, can help somebody. But service, it's the understanding you have nothing. God is everything. You have nothing. The best you can do in this world is serve. And what do? You serve God. You serve the divine in just whatever way possible. That's where our duty begins and ends, seeing God in everyone and acting properly accordingly. Only Narendra understood the implications of these words and resolved to implement this practical Vedanta, serving human beings as God. After returning from the West, Swami Vivekananda officially inaugurated the Ramakrishna Math and Mission on the 1st of May, 1897 in Calcutta. As of December 2013, it has 179 centers all over the world. Swamiji understood the difficulty of organizing, but at the same time, he realized that no religion can function or spread without an organization. The only things that keep organized work from becoming corrupt, he felt, are purity of life and renunciation. In 1890, Holy Mother visited Bodh Gaya. There, she noticed how comfortably the members of a local monastery lived with all their physical needs supplied. She later recalled, "Oh, how much I wept. How often I prayed to the Master. That is why you see all these monasteries established by his grace. Immediately after his passing away, the children renounced the world and sought out temporary shelter. But soon after, they began to wander about independently. I felt very sad, and I prayed to the Master. Oh, Master, you came down to earth, had fun with a few companions, and then departed in a happy mood. Was that the end of everything? If so, what was the need of assuming a human body and going through all this suffering? I have seen many sadhus at Varanasi and Vrindavan who live on alms and seek shelter under trees. There is no dearth of sadhus like them. I cannot bear the sight of my children who have renounced everything in your name, going from door to door for a morsel of food. I fervently pray to you that those who give up the world in your name may not lack simple food and clothing. Let them live together with you and your teachings as their center. Those who are afflicted with the sorrows of the world will come to them and obtain peace by listening to your teachings. That is the purpose of your advent, isn't it so? I cannot control myself when I see them drifting about helplessly. Afterward, Naren slowly organized all of this. So here we are in the very manifestation of Mother's prayer being taken care of, being carefully watched over as we watch the play unfold these days. So let me stop the recording here for today.